I had to go do a speech on race relations in Treaty of Waitangi yesterday morning.
Did you?
Yeah, at 11 o'clock, and so my whole, I was at half past 9, and so my brain was just not, and I just found out that he'd passed away when I had to leave to go to the school.
Oh.
You know, he's...
Yeah, well, that just happened with, I saw Patrick Bet-David. He's a journalist over in the States and commentator, and I saw his thing, and as he's walking onto the stage, his aide told him, and he was quite close, and you can see like all these guys that are these sort of pinnacles of strength and information tearing up and having a hard time.
Geez, he really touched around the world, eh?
Really touched around the world. That's why I was so shocked to see the New Zealand mainstream media, like some of them coming out and saying, oh, this far-right dude is, you know, and all these people saying he has it coming, and I'm thinking, you don't quite realise, like I ran into a lot of people yesterday with tears in their eyes that, like, you know, were saying this is the first time I've ever been really upset about a public figure because I don't know how it feels for everyone else, but it just seemed like this young dad doing everything right and spending a lot of his life trying to better the world, and then it kind of just makes you so angry.
The reaction's been stronger than I think even if Trump had been killed. I think it would have been. The reaction's been massive. I watched the journey of the coffin. It's bigger than Kyle, what's his name? The Navy SEAL guy. It's huge. It's huge. And I think because he touched.
Chris Kyle, yeah.
He's got the father husband aspect. He's got that Christian aspect, but also the fact that he was a man who was a peaceful guy. I think that's so. Whether you're Christian, atheist, whatever, you're able to attach to the values that he led to. Hardcore Christian, but those fundamental Christian values are not crazy Westboro stuff. It's love, respect and tolerance for each other.
Yeah, well, I've heard people calling him a racist, homophobe, and then you have a lot of people of colour and different, you know, gay and straight and whatever, and they're like, no, Charlie always treated me with respect.
Yeah.
Never tried to really preach to me or anything, just always had open arms. So
Sharks you.
it's a hard one to take out of the thing.
Yeah.
Do you think it was a political assassination?
No, I personally don't. I think it was the question of trans violence needs to be brought out because the frequency is just too high, and whether it's attached to pharmaceutical, whether it's attached to the drugs that they're on, or whether it's attached to the, I don't know what, or if it's something to do with the property, those who have gender dysphoria may also hold areas where their mental well-being might be affected by groupthink more than others. It's either that and or a combination of the drugs that are taking engagement. But
SSRIs and things.
There's too many examples of violence from that group. But I think they need to be brave enough to actually look at it and go, okay, well, what's going on? I mean, the bathroom brawls where they're filming footage of them having fights where you've got trans kids actually going after the trans girls, which are males, the girls, then attacking other girls and ripping their hair out, and it's always spiking up on social media.
So that's biological men attacking biological women.
Yeah, or in this case, biological boys at the at our equivalent of high school attacking girls, but really brutal stuff and all the kids filming it on their phones, but such brutality, and the increase in the high school boys saying they're girls, but they're sexually attacking or straight up penetrative raping the girls in the toilets. So that's already now coming up as well. Still, they're not looking at it.
And has that become statistically significant, recently?
Significant enough because rapes don't often happen at the equivalent of high school. So the fact that there's a spike of, now the ones in my head is about 5 of them, and that's over the last couple of years. That's just what I've come across, and not even looking for it. It's just come across in the media. That's enough to be looking at it because it just doesn't happen.
Yeah, and to get raped at school, it's this place where you think your children will be safe.
Daylight, students are around. It's usually it's in the hidden areas, at nights, at parties, in the darkness areas. But to have the broad daylights in the toilets when there's other students around is That's a whole different.
So it seems like there's a sort of fear around being able to confront it and talk about it on a social or a public level. What do you think that comes from? How did that start? Or
Well, I think that's the whole modernity effect. This style that's been in place for probably about 15 years, where if you speak about race issues, you're a racist. If you speak about homosexuality and transgenderism and the LGBTQIP+, if you're not in the narrative, then you are homophobic, transphobic, all of that phobic. If you want to discuss the increase in spikes in terrorism by Islam or whatever religion, then suddenly you're Islamophobic. So there's a chilling effect where there's a desire to not speak about the topics and the issues, but rather believe the narrative, or if you're outside it, you're a bad person, and then we must treat you as an evil person. You must ostracize, a pariah, that person.
so who's creating that narrative? Because that would, from what you've just said, whoever's creating that narrative is doing some real evil.
Yeah, they are. This is where it gets a bit harder. Is there an organisation out there? I think if you look at, I think there are movements of Marxism in play here. So if you look at, for example, in the US context, it's 60s, in the New Zealand context, it's the 70s, where you've got all these lecturers and professional academics who live their life in universities and college campuses, then they hold to socialism, communism, Marxism, essentially. And so they're teaching the young people in their care, so you will, and those young people have gone on then to become very radicalised members of community in different environments. And so when you look at a middle manager in Stats New Zealand, or if you look at a policy maker or policy writers in Beehive in Wellington, all of these people who've come from this very Marxist environment are now coming in there, and all of them are influential. And as you get more and more in there, there's a more groupthink element going on. And we've seen a similar type in South Africa after Mandela, not during Mandela, but after Mandela. You see it, of course, in the US, in New Zealand, Australia. We see this there's always been a Marxist element in the academia. It's a very common, well-known issue. But what we see now is the outcome of those heavy-duty academics who've had control of young people through the 80s, 90s, and now today.
Right, so we're just seeing the fruition of it.
We're seeing the fruition.
Yeah, right. Yeah, well, I wonder if that explains, I mean, for the people that were saying really negative things about Charlie online, a massive amount of them were in academia, and a lot of them were teachers.
Yep.
More than anything else. There seemed to be so many of them, and I thought, God, that's really dangerous. It doesn't matter who it is. You should be saying to your students, like, go out and disagree and do these things, but I guess that's only one small part of the rot. Do you think it can be healed from here?
Do you mean the hatred against conservatives, or do you mean
the rot within academia?
The rot. Yes, it can. Quite easily too, and no, not long. Basically, you go in there, you find out who is pushing these horrific values upon young people, get rid of them. It's pretty simple. If you've got a teacher who is teaching that Māori, for example, Māori are oppressed by everyone else, and they say no, because if you're white, you're a coloniser, which is actually which is within the school current under Te Huri Hanganui. Te Huri Hanganui effectively splits students up into three parts: Tauiwi, Pākehā, and Māori. And in that, if you're Māori, there's a sense that you're an oppressed person, that everyone else has engaged in oppression upon you. Then you've got the Pākehā, who is seen as that coloniser area, and then you've got Tauiwi. And that's, if you happen to be Chinese, if you come from a Chinese family, brought over in the 1860s, during the Gold Rush era, then you're still considered foreigner. Tauiwi is foreigner. Now they've tried to say that, no, it means guest. It was originally and always foreigner. And so what they've done is they've split you. So now if you've got a child, 5 years old, 6 years old, up to the end of high school, they are regarded as those three categories, and that is a divisive form of teaching children that there's an oppressed and an oppressor, and that the system either owes you something or that you owe this other skin colour something. Now, if you've got a teacher and in this case it is an and system where it's built to have that in there, then we need to just clear it out. And you can. You can clear it out. Politicians, it is not that difficult for a politician to say, okay, si te hurihanga nui, get rid of it. It's actually not. It's not. They don't actually have to run off and have different meetings about it. They actually don't have to. And I know that because I've spoken to people in caucus and ex-MPs and current MPs. They could get rid of it.
I think a lot of people don't realise that. Like, I mean, I for one always think it is a long process anytime anything happens. So just on a more sort of logistical level, if an MP did say what you just said, no, it's going to stop now, we're going to change it this way, what would actually happen on the day they said that and from then on? Do they put forward something?
They set forward the time frame, you get a little bit of pushback, doesn't matter. If you're a strong politician, you sit there, you go, no, change it. The MPs in charge change the direction of the system. So if we're talking education system, it wouldn't be that hard to be able to say, right, I don't like that policy. Now, there are differences between those policy elements and, for example, the legal part of it. So the Education Act, for example, to change elements of that would take first readings, select committees, second, third, royal assent, and all of that, which can be done quite quickly. But outside of that, any sort of policies that might be in there, there's nothing wrong with the minister going, no, get rid of it. So another example would be Simon Watts, who is he is the Minister for Local Government. There's currently riding through right now as we speak, as your audience are watching this, there's a push there to put a bill forward to make it that there's a code of conduct to be delivered to councillors, and in that they have to follow that. Now the concern is there's something in there called, along the lines of must adhere to Treaty of Waitangi principles. Now, who makes those up? No idea. But if you're going to basically put councillors under a code of conduct that says you must do whatever the Treaty of Waitangi says. But then those who say what the Treaty of Waitangi says are making it up, or they're aiming it to be for them.
So it's just a preferential interpretation of it.
Preferential interpretation.
So just to separate the principles from the treaty itself, because I think this is a point of confusion as well. So you've got the treaty, and then you've got people that are interpreting what happened in the treaty or what the treaty says and creating principles based off that?
Sort of. There are no principles, but there are.
But in this context, that's what they would.
They would like to say. So, for example, if you've got an organisation who's doing a couple of things, and then you've got an iwi who's saying, oh, no, we actually want money. We want some money. Then they might say something along the lines of, hey, that area there is tapu, but if you provide us with some type of culture-enhancing area under treaty principles, which might look like 120k for this movie, then we will be able to make it north. We will be able to make it in the way that you can do your work and things of that nature. Of course, it comes from the iwi itself, and might be someone who's they're just collecting a bit of a paycheck. The Treaty of Waitangi has 3 articles. It's got a preamble. It's got 3 articles. That's all it is. And the articles go like this. The first article is the price of doing business. You want the treaty? All right, give up the sovereignty. You have to cede sovereignty. Sir Apirana Ngata, the greatest statesman, I think the greatest statesman in New Zealand
on history. On a $50 note, yeah.
On the $50 note. He stated, in an explanation of the Treaty of Waitangi, he stated that we gave sovereignty, we ceded sovereignty. He states it that way. He states that we ceded all governance, he used the word, we ceded sovereignty. He states it. And so you've got, when he put that out there, that's Article 1. Article 2, property. What's yours is yours, what's mine is mine. Sell, trade, all we want. The nuance in there from the government was, if you'd like to sell it to the government, hey, no problem. You reserve the right, you can sell it to us first. Property rights. The third one, in my opinion, is the best, and it's never been done in British Empire ever before, which was, you will be given the same rights and privileges as those of the British Empire. Huge. And so for Britain to do that, for Queen Victoria to do that, is a massive thing. They never wanted to be here. They never wanted to engage. It was actually, a lot of it had to do with the submissions by chiefs who had gone up to England to say, hey, look, there's this dude called Wakefield who's been doing some dodgy stuff, and Russell's a hellhole of the Pacific's going on. Hey, we need something to help us out here. Right, so the Treaty of Waitangi, 3 articles, pretty simple, not much words in it, and yet it's been expounded to be this massive thing. And I always remember when Jacinda Ardern was asked about the articles of the treaty, and she's sitting there going, "Oh yeah, and then you hear, I think it was Willie Jackson in the background going, "Tino rangatira," and then just sitting there, "Oh yeah, Tino rangatira, thank you, you know."
Yeah.
Oh, I learned it in school. Oh, sure you did, bro. Sure you did. I don't know what you were doing, but it wasn't Treaty of Waitangi stuff.
As far as the treaty, like I understand these 3 articles, I guess the pushback from those on the other side is they say it was a matter of also a lack of understanding of legal processes, the language, all these sort of things. What do you say to that?
Why I laugh about this is they have this feeling that we as Māori, now I'm Tātou o Ngāti Raukawa in terms of Māori, and I'm also part Niue, part Tonga, and part Pālahi, or English, from England. Why I laugh about this is that the narrative is that we're a bunch of ignorant, flax-wearing savages who were like walking along, and then the white man comes along and, "Hey, sign this. Here's some beads and blankets. Give us the West Coast." It's like, okay, that's not quite how it rolled. Now, when it came to it, now there's a whole backdraft as to how we even got to deciding whether to sign a treaty, but I'll put that to the side for now because it's actually beautiful history, but it goes too long.
Please.
In the days that, real briefly, 20, 30 second, the many Māori at the time were sick of the blood of the musket wars. The musket wars had slaughtered, erased entire bloodlines of whānau, wiped out entire hapu throughout New Zealand. It was no other war in New Zealand. Forget the New Zealand land wars. The musket wars were brutal. They slaughtered. And then when that was Hongi Hika, who first got the muskets, slaughtered his way south. Then you had Te Raupraha, and then you had all these other chiefs starting to get muskets, and they just slaughtered, pillage, rape, mass murder. What I mean is conquering and then mass murder. Entire families wiped out, their bloodline gone, eating, cannibalism to the days. There's this weird narrative going out there that we as Māori did not engage in cannibalism.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot recently. Yeah.
Cannibalism was a normal part of conquering. It was a normal part. There are many attestations from different France, England, Spain, Portugal, where they were part of it. They saw it with their own eyes, and some of their own cabin people were victims of that. So slaughter was immense. The chiefs did get tired of all the blood and the killing. In that, you also had the issues going on with land, Wakefield, New Zealand company, and also some of the concern that they had going with other things. At the time, of course, England didn't want to be a part of it. They had gone through that. They'd gone through another Christian Reformation element, so the government had become a lot more Christian, and that's hence why a lot of times we had the abolition of slavery and things of that nature. They didn't want to get involved, and this is through the letters of the Home Office. You can see all of this. A lot of the reason was because they didn't want another India. They'd stuffed up India. They didn't want to do that again. They wanted to be nice, much nicer. But the chiefs were asking, the missionaries were asking, and suddenly you had France, I think it was France and Denmark were suddenly come down there with contracts, and that just pushed them over the edge. Hobson got attached, sent down to New Zealand, and they started that whole debate and started getting it. Now, what was great is the 2-3 days before the signing of the treaty, Māori chiefs and those who were signing, and the 7 women who also signed on behalf of their people, had a massive debate. Like this, 2-3 days, massive debate, transcribed, put into Te Kārere. It's on public record. It's great to read. They argued about sovereignty. They argued about the land. They argued whether they should sign it, shouldn't. Some were agreeing, some were disagreeing, and some were in the middle, really discussing it out. Beautiful. Now, the issue comes because there was, when you had the Māori, well, there's actually about 5, I think, versions, but you had you had the English translation and a Māori translation. And the person who translated it. They ended up translating and they changed a couple of the words. Now, the words, you could argue, yeah, okay, there was a little bit of confusion there. That's fair. You could argue that at the time. But when it came to that argument, there were those arguing that the loss of sovereignty overall was going to lead to different land issues and things of that nature. The chiefs who were happy about it stated it. So whatever is happening in those little interpretations of words, because they were not big interpretation issues. They actually were not big. They were small interpretation issues. And they discussed it. Now, they signed it. They went around the country and most of them signed it, all that good stuff. 5 years later, you had the land wars that went on, and then that stopped. Now, 20 years after the signing of the treaty in 1860, this is the crux of it. You've got 1840, they signed it after arguing about sovereignty, land, costs, money, rights, all of that good stuff. 20 years after they signed it, about 500 of them head off to Kohimarama for the Kohimarama conference. And in that, they discuss everything that's happened since the 1840 signatures.
Mm-hmm.
What about sovereignty? What about the land wars? What about the land claims? What about the issues about confiscations? All of that. They argued about the whole thing. Again, transcribed, put into public record. And this is where it gets beautiful. They, on the whole, were happy with the Treaty of Waitangi. They also confirmed secession of sovereignty. You could argue that there were some misinterpretations at the time of signing. But 20 years have passed, and then you had the signers and the descendants of those signers coming back and say, yeah, all good. On the whole, all good. Yep, seceded sovereignty. All right, fast forward then into the 20th century, 1920, whatever, and Sir Apirana Ngata comes along. He says it. Full secession of sovereignty. We did it. The reason why the activists of today, the academics of today, the main core reason why they do not like Sir Apirana Ngata and why they try their best to try to sidestep the signers and the descendants of the signers is because of the fact that they say, yeah, sovereignty seceded. The reason that they give for why Sir Apirana Ngata is wrong is because of the Waitangi tribunal saying that Apirana Ngata was wrong. That's it. That's their main call. They say, nah, Sir Apirana Ngata was wrong. We didn't secede. We didn't cede sovereignty. And the core reason for that is because Waitangi tribunal said that we didn't cede sovereignty. And it's like, what?
But so you still can point back to the Kohimarama and things like that,
Yeah. Kohimarama, 20 years after the thing was signed.
Yeah.
Blood fresh in their veins. Memories of the land wars still in play. You can't get any more stronger than evidence from that. And so the activists and the academics who want to run around pretend like, oh no, we didn't see sovereignty, whatever. But this goes to, I can't remember what it was, but that horrific Nazi guy. What did he say? I think he said something along the lines of, a lie repeated often enough becomes the truth. And I think that's what they're doing. They're following that guy's quote. A lie repeated often enough becomes the truth. We didn't see sovereignty. We didn't see sovereignty. We didn't see sovereignty. Time after time and time again. And then everyone starts to go, you're right. We didn't see sovereignty.
Yeah, and the cherry on top is you're racist if you say it.
Yeah,
that's always the end one, isn't it?
And of course, for myself and people like Karina, who you've had before, we are, of course, the worst type because we are brown, we whakapapa Māori, and we say, you are wrong and you are trying to divide our people and you are not speaking for Māori.
Yeah, I see that a lot, yeah.
We become horrible.
Yeah, I mean, so from there, I suppose fast forward again to Hobson's pledge, because a lot of what you do is based off all of this, isn't it? So there's still, I mean, I've been in preparation for this, speaking to people about Hobson's pledge and doing my research, and a lot of people have heard of it. Not everyone's fully on it, what you're actually doing. I mean, this is the website says you're opposing race-based policies and things like that. So can you give us like a little bit of a lowdown about what you guys are trying to achieve and what you're about?
No, all good. So Hobson's Pledge is at its core, it's a civil rights group civil rights lobby group who seeks to make it so that all people are treated the same equally. Hobson's Pledge, the name comes from the Hobson man himself, the one who came down from England. And what Colenso, the missionary, wrote is that as each of the chiefs and the signatories put their sign to paper, it came up and they greeted Hobson, and Hobson said, he iwi tahi tātou, meaning we are one people. And it's a beautiful one.
He said that.
He said that.
Oh.
He said, he iwi tahi tātou. And so when that happens, we are one people. Oh, beautiful. Really, really beautiful sort of saying. Simple, powerful, profound.
And true.
And true.
Yeah.
And so that, when you look at it, there is no Māori who carries full-blood Māori anymore. Now, some people go, oh, shocking. I think that's a beautiful thing because you're looking at the fact that Māori and Pākehā and Chinese when they came and the Indians when they came, there's a mixtures of all different people. We're multi-ethnic. I carry the bloods of Tonga, Niue, England and Māori as well. I think it's a beautiful thing. That's a picture of New Zealand. And so when we look at the Hobson's Pledge, they're saying, treat all people the same. We're all equal. Let us fight well. My part of this when I came in was in my other parts of being social conservatism, I saw that affirmative action policies were hurting our people. And the idea of Māori being oppressed by the white man effectively in colonisation, I had learned when I went into youth work, I was a card-carrying lefty. In fact, I still hold some of my essays from when I was at school and just after school at uni, where I've used the term institutional racism over 15 times in each of those. I was full of systemic iniquities brought around by colonisation. And, I used all the buzzwords, all of them.
I can't imagine it.
So after 10 years of youth work, and this sometimes happens, I end up going down a hole, as in burnt out, came back up, and then I did a whole bunch of study because I was like, we're winning young people case by case, but we're not winning overall. We're still losing overall. Why are we losing overall? All of the leftist Marxist ideologies that I held to didn't seem to be working. Well, they weren't working. So I went into it, looked at it, and then I found, the core reasons to why over half of our prisons and half of our childcare secure facilities are Māori. Why is it? Broken homes. Broken home. My own work, the statistics, and interestingly enough, came into another tangent, which is New Zealand does not ask these questions. Overseas asks the questions of prisoners. What home did you grow up in? Was it a broken home or was it not? New Zealand does not ask these questions. We find it from some anecdotal research, but nothing deep. So we don't ask it, but the statistics, the longitudinal studies, all point directly to broken home, broken person. I had solo dad for the first part of my life. Then I had a mum and her husband, and then they broke down, and now I had a solo mum. So I had different broken home situations. I was a statistic, drugs, alcohol, gangs, blah, 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 all that sort of buzz. The idea that colonization, white people, whatever, is the reason why our people are in prison is incorrect. And the secondary problem of it being incorrect is that the millions and millions of dollars, taxpayer dollars, that goes into focusing on building that issue up, which is a non-issue, means that we've removed it from the real issue, which is somehow repairing family unions, making a supportive nation for looking after families. So we've got the wrong reason, and we've got money that could be used to support families, even a nice playground, making it more secure facilities for people to come in and out and look after their kids. Instead of that, it's white man bad, white man system, and that's why things get worse, not better. So I came in on that, and the other social conservative stuff as well. Hobson's Pledge, Don gave me a yell, like 2017, 18.
Don Brash.
Don Brash gave me a call about this. Basically, he'd been looking for someone to be doing a debate with him at uni, and apparently he'd been rejected by a lot of the politicians because at the time he was persona non grata. He was, on the outer. And so someone said, "Oh, call this fella. He's a bit of a strange fella, but he jabbers on all right."
You or Don?
Me and Don.
Yeah.
So anyway, he called me up and said, sweet, that's very all good. So anyway, I went up to university. He tuned up about 20 minutes before we were due to start, which I thought was all right.
Yeah.
Apparently people were freaking out. It's like, "Oh, you came? I'm early, man." Anyway, the funny thing was he was due to speak first, because he's actually a great speaker. He was due to speak first, but then there was a protest, and they stated that we are not going to let Don Brash speak. And so, what the hell? And so then they said, flip around, let's put Elliot in front. And I was like, don't put me in front. Shucks, I'm just happy to have a bit of a jam. So anyway, they stuck me in front. We went out there. I ended up getting angry at the protesters. And so I ended up speaking for in Te Reo Māori for probably the first, 30, 40, 50 seconds.
Were they Māori protesters mostly? Is that why?
No, they were not.
Oh, right, okay.
There's maybe 2 or 3. The rest of them were very balangi, very woke, very woke. But of course, and they were singing the good old, a song that I love. They sing a song that I love, but it's a song that everyone knows. So that was cool. I actually joined the singing as well. So that was cool.
I think it's the right attitude.
Hey, yeah, it was fun. I'll take a couple of photos with that, all that sort of fun. But it was great. It was a great night. Me and Don started to chat more and more. I ended up being extremely humbled and honoured because I think in 2019 he asked me to be his kai kōrero for going on Te Ati Marae, which is the traditional marae for every Waitangi Day that politicians go to. Now they go to the high marae.
Sorry to be ignorant here. What's kai kōrero?
Kai kōrero is someone who will speak on behalf of the person when you go on to a pōwhiri. I'm not great at it, but I can at least muddle my way through it. Like I think I can do the proper way. And so I did that. Lovely, great time, and we just developed a good relationship, a good friendship after that. So got to know him more and more. I loved it, and so we joined up. And then he asked me to join on. I think it was last year. He asked me to join on to the HPT, and I have been a blast ever since. Great fun.
Yeah, cool. I didn't want to interrupt you halfway through, but something I really got from the middle of that was around the broken homes and family. And because I know you guys focus a lot on family values, and as a youth worker, you must have seen a lot of this up front. So do you find that a lot of the time, people that are statistics or teenagers that enter being a statistic with, like you said, gangs, drugs, whatever, violence, are they usually from broken homes?
Almost always.
Almost always.
I wouldn't even say usually. I would say in my own work, half a dozen had mum and dad. And that's out of about 2 decades.
Wow.
Now this is 2 decades of professional and or personal work. So even when I wasn't working in the field, I was still doing stuff around it and doing stuff to help out different regions, churches, organizations, and doing parts like that. But I'd say, I'm really trying to think, but I'm thinking maybe half a dozen of those who were in SIFs or oranga tamariki care or under their scope. Yeah, I'd say maybe half a dozen had mums, dads, but
it begs the obvious question, why aren't people staying together? Because we know that in this, like especially in the 2020s, like very few people are getting married, and the ones that do aren't staying together for very long.
That's right.
And I mean, I've looked over all sorts. There's some, I mean, I'm not going to say every opinion I have as to why exactly it has happened, but I think that perhaps hijacked feminism in a way, which was the idea of it being, like we said before, equal, right? But it got hijacked in such a way to say, you don't need men, you can do everything by yourself, anything a man can do, you can do, kind of forgetting that we do have traditional gender roles for a reason. It's because they've worked for hundreds of thousands of years. So I think
it's made a bad situation worse. In terms of the breakdown of the family unit, so when I came back out and started to rebuild, when I was looking into it, the numbers are actually quite conclusive. The numbers are quite clear. After signing of the treaty And when we actually started to look at family numbers by statistics in the 1900s, like the first 10 years of 1900s, and then we started to build our numbers after that. The numbers of Māori families was pretty solid, 75, 80%, marry. It was actually pretty good. And that continued. There was a small dip after the World War II when you started to have urbanization where Māori started to move away from their traditional homes, provinces, and move into the city areas. So you had a dip there. But where the drop, there is actually a time where there's a marked drop and a following increased spike in criminal behaviour or the antisocial behaviour.
Well, they correlate directly.
Oh man, it's quite crazy. When you look at the line in the bar graphs, it's quite fascinating. It really does focus like that. And in that, you can go back to the 70s. 1974, well-meaning area came out called the DPB, Domestic Purposes Benefit. That was, so if a husband or a boyfriend or something had done a runner, then the mother could carry on, or if the guy had died, again, It was started in 1974, and it was made easier and easier and easier.
To get it.
To get it.
Right, yeah.
And Māori were, I'm not sure if I'd say targeted, but there is a sense that it was targeted. So I don't want to say targeted because I don't have evidence to say, yep, boom, you guys targeted.
That's just your feeling.
It's just my feeling of it. But it was Māori who grabbed it, and what we believe strongly happened is it subsidized single parenthood, because suddenly women didn't need a man in the state. The government became that father provider.
I think that's the strongest argument for it. Yeah.
A fascinating statistic is in the 70s, you had an 80% chance of being born into a married mum and dad home if you were Māori. If you were born Māori, you were born into a home, it's 80% chance. I was one of the 20%, interestingly enough. I was born in the 70s, I was one of the 20%. Fast forward to at the end of the 2010s last year, so around 2017, 18, 19, the figure had dropped from 80% down to 20%.
Wow, that is precipitous.
80% born into a married mum and dad home dropped to 20% chance of being born to a married mum and dad home.
Wow.
And the social literature around the sciences of this is utterly clear. Being born into a married mum and dad home, whatever you think about the piece of paper, whatever you think about it, it is a contractual public obligation to biological children. Now, I've heard all the arguments around, it's just a piece of paper, and people cohabiting together is absolutely fine, and all of that. I've heard it all.
Yep.
But the literature on this is so clear that if you have a married mum and dad in the home, the child statistically does the best out of every other type of living situation, whether solo, gay, straight, but not living together, cohabitation. It does better than every single other by leaps and bounds. It's not even close. It's not even close. The long shooter, the big three, the US, the England, and the Dunedin study are pretty clear. If you get into if you're born into a married mum and dad home, you're less likely than every single other type of growing up to be engaged in crime, suicide, suicidality, drug taking, alcohol taking, pain of others, molestation. Everything. Everything. You want the best organisation for making a strong person? It's got nothing to... Okay, I don't want to say nothing, but it's got little to do with education or money that you came in. No. Your family. Married, mum and dad home. To be fair, the little nuances. Low conflict, but whatever. Mum and dad, it's excellent. And we've seen that. And more accurately, for myself, I've seen the other side. And so when I've been working with young people throughout the years, broken home, and in that, no dad. Now, of course, it's very common. It's no longer because in the 2010s, it sort of shifted from no dad to now grandparents. Grandparents are then started to be the main ones to look after. Grandparents. we're starting to move into an area now where the old rules have come off, where it used to be that grandparents were left alone if there was theft, abuse, or violence, but now the grandparents are getting it as well.
Yeah.
And then you throw in the mix that third or fourth wave feminism, and then of course now you've got that expanding out into this other area, which is the non-high risk areas, who now have got young people who now they are going to be made at risk, and they are treated at risk because suddenly the mum might go, nah, get stuff. I'm not emotionally fulfilled, get stuff. And that's where you talk about divorce rates of 50% and worse. And then the child becomes jogging back and forth, acodisms, and you name it, all of that stuff. And now, of course, we've got the fourth wave feminism being, well, men can be women.
Yeah, well, I think every big wave ends with something really ridiculous that makes people realise that it doesn't work.
Yes.
But it still seems to be a strong cultural issue, that last one.
It is. Well, here's also one that's getting me really worried, which is, and I believe this is that feminism element, is the birth rates.
Oh, yeah.
Is that we're not replacing ourselves.
We're way below.
We are so far below that we're starting. Japan is pretty much
0.73, something like that.
Yeah, they're at non-sustainable. So they're under the current number, unless they do something drastic to change it, they're gone, as in they will be extinct. That's what the numbers are suggesting strongly. We are very low, but I think we're barely making do. Now, the question is, of course, once we are having children, is it going to be solid and strong for our environment? Or are we going to see more violence, more crime, more criminality? Or is there a replacement culture that's coming in? Can we have this discussion? Can we have this topic? I think it's an important one.
That discussion has to be had, for sure. We can't put it under the rug here. All right, well, moving on to NCEA. You've talked a little bit about this. I have a son right now in the NCEA system.
Oh, okay.
Less than impressed.
Right.
I went through it myself.
Why not just get to do the video game course or do some
karate? Yeah.
He
does a bit of jiu-jitsu.
Hey.
Yeah, put him through that. Whereas I was actually, talking to our cameraman Oscar earlier, and we were saying that, you can game the system so hard. We could take things like viticulture and sea sports, and you get a ton of credits, and it's sort of like, the whole thing's pointless.
I was part of that. I was a part of it. I worked with some schools, and we hustled, man. We hustled. Wow, we just go here for a little bit of kung fu stuff and esports. We did some esports.
You actually did that.
We actually did esports stuff.
Yeah, but I think it takes the academia out of it, which is fine in a way, but except that school is geared towards academia. So you take all these kids and you say, you're passing, congratulations on all your credits. And then they get to university and they're like, where's the C sports? Where's the e-gaming? And they're like, no, you're going to work for 60 hours a week now.
Yeah,
so I think so do you think the current NCA system needs to be replaced or fixed?
The NCA was always stupid. It was always stupid. I think this thing's been in place for like 20 years, but it was always dumb. Even when I was younger, much younger back then, 20 years ago when it came in, even I could see, and I had no kids, I didn't care, I didn't want kids, I was happy just cruising around. Even I could see this NCA thing was dumb, just straight dumb. No one ever understood it. No. Very few people understand it today. I work alongside employers. All they know really is, for them, and now this is just taking anecdotes, and I'm trying to wrap it in a paraphrase here. NCA 1 is pointless. NCA 2 is where we might be able to take you and then do something with you. That's a general. That's all they know. That's all they really know. And then subjects don't matter. They just go by, NCA level 1, nah, Jack, don't want you. NCA level 2, okay, minimum, let's go. We get to put you onto the tools and start building you up. But they don't listen to it. The employers, the people who hire people, they don't understand it. And it's fair. All the kids learn to do is how to hustle it, how to hustle the system.
So what would you replace it with?
You know what? I like Cambridge.
Yeah.
I tell you what, I like the old days. What's wrong with having to sit down in a scary place where you're not to talk and sticking you with a pencil or a pen, and then you've got 45 minutes for question 1, and you go, scary? Hell yeah. So what? This idea that we should be looked after, cuddled and coddled, is not good. Now, I can see a little place for maybe some internal assessment, or I might be amenable to that. But if you look at the schools, which are bringing out in general, much more high rates of disciplined and educationally strong, Ags, Auckland Grammar. Very, very well known for bringing out strong young men, and a lot of the guys go on to good, strong roles. They don't muck around with NCA. They don't do it. They sit with Cambridge and Cambridge similar type of assessments. There's nothing wrong with putting people in an assessment procedure because at some point you are going to anyway. There's nothing wrong with provoking one's resilience by exposing one's resilience to it. When you used to go up to, I remember going up to my exams and being scared, making sure I was on time, going into the hall, making sure I was making sure I didn't have anything in my pocket so I could make sure my hands were clean, didn't want to get anything attached. I rolled in there and I was scared. I was scared as. Sat down at the table, quiet, and then we just wrote. There was no niceties about, we'll have some background static alpha wave music or something like that. No, none of that junk. It was a straight up there. And you become resilient to those things. There's nothing wrong with going, girls meeting boys. Swipe.
Yeah.
Utterly unhealthy for long-term relationships and being able to have conflict resolutions between yourselves and your partner. But instead, back in the day, scared as trying to go up and trying to think your best way of making sure you smell good and look okay, walking up in a certain way, and also exposing yourself to being rejected on the spot and then having to walk back and be rejected. And that builds a beautiful resilience and it builds tolerance for other people going through the same thing.
Yeah, we can sometimes see men that have never heard no and they take it really badly.
Yeah.
Or they don't like
we've seen suicide. I've seen suicides come out from that.
From being rejected by a woman.
Yep.
What I would say is that, I don't think we should bring Cambridge back in. I think we need a new system because in those 2 or 3 decades that NCA has existed, we've learned a lot about how kids learn. And one of the big things we know now is they don't learn the same way. And some kids, about 15% or so, as far as, you might know this better than I do, they work really well with a teacher standing up, writing on the board, and they absorb that information. They can, fit it into a way that they understand, and then they can transfer that back when needed to with their memory onto paper. That's a very small percentage of kids. I think we need a more, maybe not something that panders to every person's tiny little thing, but I think there is some pretty solid research around, especially young boys, about sitting down for long periods of time. It wouldn't hurt.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
So I think there's the whole education system, not just NCEA, from the ground up.
I'm going to use, because they're a good standard, Auckland Grammar. They've got a good, solid boys' school. Their discipline is beautiful. They are a very good standard. If I was to put a template on something, I'd probably go to them.
Do you think single-sex schooling's the way to go?
Yep.
Yeah, me too.
Cuts out distractions.
It does, yeah. You got the weekend for that.
Yeah, you got the weekend. We all have those things. The one, because the other thing as well about about where that children learn, modern learning environments. I was always a bit dumb. Yep, came out in the 70s, but then they brought it back strongly over the last 15 years, where they stuck in all kids and made it things like inquiry-based learning, where student-led learning and where the student sort of takes on. But then, of course, the problem was you're trying to get children to learn at a scaffolded approach, which means that they are trying to learn their questions that they're trying to do, and that the teacher, or in some cases learning coach, tries to bridge their understanding like that. But that, of course, assumes that they've already built a solid foundation of academic understandings, whereas the old style was build. Here are the building blocks. And then after that, then you can start to expand and expound upon what you've already built. The NCA, no, not NCA, sorry, but the pedagogical, or maybe not pedagogy, but the ways in which they decided to push the learning, I think went too much into the let's all be conducive and Vygotsky style collective approaches by sharing information. Whereas I still want, I think Cambridge is better, but I do see your point about some of the other styles. I don't think we should go as far as what we've had for the last 20 years, 10, 15 years definitely. But I could see maybe a little bit of internal assessments. I think a very strong one is, and you alluded to it, is the boys. The problem is not so much the style. The problem is not so much the environment of learning. The problem is the lack of understanding males in the school. So if you look at the numbers, boys are censored and punished or sent off to, not expelled often, but often suspended many more times than the ladies. And that's because they seem to be treating, I'm just putting this as the way I view it, they seem to be treating boys as defective females. As in the ladies can sit there all day long and chill out, and when it's playground, no worries, you don't have to give them an hour. Give them 35 minutes for lunch or something like that. Whereas there's a reason why 1 hour lunch works, especially for males. There's a reason why. Unstructured time of expending energy and giving that to males is phenomenal. For ladies, neurology, psychology, but neurology, don't need it as much. It can be moved and done in different ways, right? So I think actually it's more, the male element is more about a lack or a reduction in accepting males for what males are and trying to transfer or transplant what is a young lady onto a young man. And I think that's become highly
I
problematic.
think it's the diminishing and confusion of what masculinity is in the modern day. Like it's, I didn't have my dad in the home either. I saw him once a month or so, and that was, so I definitely lacked that sort of solid male guidance. And it's only, I've really had to teach it to myself as an adult as I've gone. But
Would have been hard.
very hard.
How would you have pieced a man? Because we all need men. And if we don't have one, we'll make one.
Yeah.
So how did you piece yours together?
Wow, you're just right about sort of making one. It definitely didn't happen all in one day, and I think it's still got many more days ahead of it because it became very clear to me that it wasn't a matter of age. It was definitely a matter of mindset and how you thought about things. And a big part of it was to stop thinking about myself so much, to think about others. But there were many things and many people I respected who I took small things from. But the biggest two things for me, my wife and God. My wife, I'm afraid to say this, but more, to be honest, she's the basis for everything. And I think having a person that you really, really, truly love and care for kind of forces you into the position or activates some sort of biological deep switch, like having a child. You never feel true love or protectiveness until you see your little baby and you just think, oh, I'd kill anyone for this kid.
Yeah. Oh my God.
I'd murder a whole room of people to save my child, but... So I think all those things combined, but really my wife, I think she was the big switch. I think I had all the tools gathered in my mind. I'd seen people I respected and I saw things that I didn't like, particularly, we've seen it very recently with this Irina, the Ukrainian woman on the train, got stabbed and killed, and it's just, those sort of things made me think there should have been men standing up there and helping her, and it's the product of that. It wasn't that one in particular, obviously, that was just recently, but things like that. Yeah, women getting attacked and...
you know what's interesting, of course, in terms of the black crime in America, which Charlie Kirk has spoken of often. In America, you had the issue of the Lyndon B. Johnson policy came out exactly the same as DPP in the 70s. They had Lyndon B. Johnson in the 60s. Now, 75% of black Americans grow up with no father. So they don't have any father.
That's nuts.
So they learn different ways, and that's why 13% of the population ends up committing over half of the violent crime.
55% of the murders. Yeah. So
you've got this, but yeah, I mean, I love hearing about that. That's actually quite cool.
What about you? How did you become a man?
Yeah. The good thing was I did have a good, strong, solid, extended family. So I had a solo dad. And so for the first part of my life, I grew up with solo dad, which means I had that solid strength in there. Probably the negative side of that is I didn't have sensitivity, no gentleness or sensitivity elements there. So I was able to hold myself, be strong where I needed to be, but there was no gentleness there.
Because the masculine traits were the ones that were encouraged.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Because it was a very natural sort of sense. And we left at home for days on end sometimes, nearly died in quarries and stuff like when Dad was working. Dad would work like late at night, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning, and we would go gallivanting in the junkyards of Penrose and stuff like that. Great adventures, great experience, nearly died, but lacking that gentleness, that hug, that embrace, the softer side of it. And so I struggled a great deal with that. And then, of course, went over to mum and all that sort of stuff. In terms of, I ended up having deep rage in me, but I was one of those guys. Smile, 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 but deep rage inside and harsh, brutally harsh. The ones who gentled me, it was God first, and that God element filled a deep hole. I didn't like God at the time, and I ended up actually being quite atheist, but there was a mixture of rationality and just, and actually a Malaysian family who ended up leading me to the Lord, and then everything sort of slotted in quite nicely. And since then, of course, the academic side of Christianity has come out.
Funny how that happens, eh?
Oh, yeah. And then the other one was my wife. My wife has brought a massive gentle element. And man, it was hard for her in the early years. Very hard, because here's this guy who's very strong, able to go out into the wilderness and take on big fights. But when he comes home, he's distant and he struggles with the softer side of things, and he can't. And when they have arguments, I don't hold her. Instead, I'm talking about, hey, let's have a discussion. Let's discuss things. Let's talk it through. If we're having issues at, but she'd be crying, and I wouldn't have any compunction to hold.
I was the same.
Now I've changed over the years, but it's been the years, and I've just become a lot softer now, a lot more gentle. And it's her. She's the one who's been able to gentle that element of it, and she's also been able to help me out on a couple of things when I've gone downhill. And
She sounds like an amazing woman.
Yes, Tiger, Singaporean.
Where would we be without them, eh?
Oh yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Something that sort of, I guess in New Zealand around this idea of protecting and all these sort of things is, and kind of back to your idea about having big daddy government, to help you out, is the police force is a big part of that. And what we've sort of seen is this up and down, but people on the whole feeling not very protected a lot of the time.
Yes, true.
I did notice the ram raids seem to have basically gone to a trickle, which is, let's give National that one prop.
I will give New Zealand First that prop. Well done.
New Zealand First. Yeah, sorry.
I'm being a bit silly,
I
but
know.
the coalition did well in there.
Yeah, it was New Zealand First that put it through, though, eh?
Well, to be fair, all of them wanted to. I think New Zealand First might have led the charge a little bit on that, but all three of them will. That was us. That was us National. That was us ACT. That was us New Zealand First.
Yeah.
So all of them will put them.
I'm sure we'll see it in the campaigning.
Yeah.
So, do you think that law and order in New Zealand is where it should be?
No, definitely not. I'm always reminded about in the 90s, there was a beautiful song with the police that came out and say, "You're my brother." He's my brother. He's my brother. The beautiful song. And the police, and at that time, the police were well known to be part of the community. It was a really good time. I think it was a nice sort of a heyday for the police and people, sort of togetherness element. I thought it was really good. Around in the 2010s, there were some concerns around how the police were operating. We did hear you heard about little spots, for example, the police who were using prostitutes, and there was some sexual crime, and that section there's been dotted. So you get but you get corrupt cops every now and then. 2017 comes around, Labour wins, and that's where we start seeing a real concerning trait with protests and nursings and different styles of treatment. And then you start seeing, the police are racist. Why are they racist? Oh, because surveys say that they're racist. And you start to see this narrative coming out. But in the mix, the policies start to change. Now, one policy that I couldn't stand was, and actually this is a national policy to be fair, was National said, hey, we've halved the rate of youth crime. No, you haven't. What they did was they made it so that police were to give out warnings, unrecorded, or at least unrecordable by OAA, of young people doing crime. So if they stole a bike, for example, looked at a younger boy, give me the bike, then the policeman could stop. Don't do that again. Just do a sort of like a little note, and then go on. That's
Slap on the hat.
intimidation and theft. They would only start to put them through the rangatahi court or the youth court at a certain level, or if they felt it was severe enough. So that was a policy change. Now, fast forward a year and a half, the cops came around and said, hey, look. Oh, no, sorry. The cops gave those figures, and then the government, which I believe was national, said, look what we've done. We've halved youth crime. And it was like, no, you haven't. You've halved the amount of times that a youth ends up at youth court.
That's cheeky.
Yeah. So this is that whole statistics.
Yeah.
Was it lies, damn lies, and statistics? Oh, no, it was just, yeah. And so that they're only seeing that when they got to a really severe level, which means at that time they've committed a couple of thefts, intimidation, stealing the kid's bike, and then they've gone into a knife punch or some sort of
escalated.
Yeah. So when they first get it, instead of having the youth court see the kids in, they get them when they're here, and at that point, the judges are going, well, let's do a strength-based approach to help you build yourself up. And all these policies came out crazier and crazier. And the police ended up having to take on the policies, whether they liked it or not, that were very much not in the interest of the community well-being. Then, of course, we saw some of the usages. Then there was just a flood of, under Labour, bad decisions. And I guess the two big ones for me, which just tragically destroyed for me credibility in the police, was the freedom protests. The freedom protests, not just the Freedom Village at Wellington, but the freedom protests, and also the Posey Parker incident at Albert Park. Because in the Posey Parker incident, of course, it was, I believe it was being led by a transgender cop. The police were noted to not be there when the women were being attacked. They were standing very far away. They weren't helping at all. And there's too many witnesses to account for.
Yeah, those videos are chaos. Yeah.
The protests themselves, just graceful. I mean, and the Wellington protest was brutal. They hurt, they nearly killed, they busted arms, chest sternum. I remember a massive injury there.
Karina had a hell of a time there.
Yeah. We got some good footage out of there showing that the police. I mean, I remember one where it was the police observed that the protester was throwing acid at the police. We had video that showed a cop spraying caps of pepper spray, whatever it is, spray, walks that way out of camera shot and then walks back like that. And you're like, is that your acid? That's your acid, is it? Pepper spray. And
it's on video.
It's on video. And so just sitting there going, wow. Andrew Costa, you've got Andrew Costa, who goes to church and goes to push Black Lives Matter, which is already based off a lie anyway. The police became a political force as opposed to a law enforcement force. And that's sadly why I think the public trust is bedrock.
I think you're bang on. Elliot, I could talk to you all night. I feel like we've barely scraped the surface, but we've already hit our time limit here. I could see the lady giving me a little shake of the hand.
The little note, the little light.
Yeah, I can see you. No, that's cool. There's one more thing I'd be interested to ask you.
Awesome.
So we've got an election coming up. Who's going to win?
You mean next year's election? I think the coalition will get back in. I think New Zealand First will be stronger, ACT will be then stronger, and I think National will be weaker. But I think it will still be roughly the same. If it's the other way, if Labour and the Greens and Māori, Te Pāti Māori get in, we won't recover. Essentially, New Zealand will be segregated. The racial stuff will become not just worse, but it will become deeply entrenched, and it will take a physical effect on the ground.
Yeah, well, I can see that anecdotally with some of the more extreme parts of that coalition already.
Right now.
Taka Teferis, Chloe Swarbrick, and I hear them talking and I think, I've actually invited both of them onto this show. Don't think I'll ever hear back, but I'd love to talk to them, to hear them from the mouth, but it would scare me if they were in charge of anything. Someone mentioned Chloe being finance minister. There we go, I'll finish on a joke. Elliot, thank you so much, mate. Appreciate it.
Awesome.
Cheers.